What up, all you beautiful human beings? Kenneth Barry here. Touchdowns and Tangents podcast, number 67, or nah. This podcast is like when you have a delicious meal at your disposal. You're almost done with it, really enjoying every bite. It's a great day. Everything's going fine, sun's shining, all that good stuff. Next thing you know, something happens. You end up flipping the table. You end up flipping the food on the floor. Whatever happens, a bum sneezes on you. It's ruined. You're pissed off. You just have that nasty, gnarly feeling of incompleteness for a while. Then next meal comes along, and then you really sit back and think about that last meal. And that moment where things went wrong. And you realize, you know what? The scope of it was actually really great. Most of it. It's just something happened. Didn't get to recover. But it was still great. That's pretty much what happened this week. Pete and I, we interviewed some excellent journalists. Taylor Rooks, Bob Garcia IV. They gave so much insight. It was really a really great interview. And because of some unfortunate audio feedback issues that we just couldn't get solved, we lost all the audio. But on this episode, we start off, we give you pretty much a synopsis of what was talked about. They gave some really good advice, really great stories. Then we go into our mock drafts, what we did and didn't like, kind of go on a take or tangent based off that. Then we do full-time take and tangent on all the NFL news that's going on. We got the biggest one, Kaepernick and the collusion case. Eric Reed still isn't signed. Players retired. Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Matt Forte, all these guys retired. We talk about that. I don't like Rex Grossman, and also my mock draft was way better than Pete's. Then we kind of touch into, realistically, this week in general and how it kind of made us feel, what we learned, where we're at in life. It got really emotional, really sappy. Like, one of us might cry playing that back, but it's whatever. Bottom line is, you can catch our full mock drafts on medium.com. You can catch us anywhere there's content, internet content available, because we are a apparatus of sound and entertainment. You can catch us on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Facebook, Google Play, blase, all these different places. But most importantly, you can catch us ASAP.
And like, why don't you go ahead and give the whole story of how everything kind of unfolded?
Okay, so...
Well, back up. Why don't you tell people who Taylor Rooks is first? And then I'll kind of go into how the whole thing kind of started out.
Okay, so she graduated from the University of Illinois. Degree in journalism. Has a famous father who played in the NFL, went to Illinois. Famous uncle, won a World Series with the St. Louis Cardinals. She's one of the top anchors for her new station,
Sportsnet New York.
Yep. She has her own podcast,
Time Out with Taylor.
Yep. And all around just a great journalist. She put in a lot of work. She's young. I think she was at Howard University doing a talk a couple weeks ago.
She's been on the Joe Budden podcast, Sports Illustrated late night show. She's killing it. She's blowing up. Yeah.
She's killing it right now. She's killing it.
So basically over the past couple of weeks we've been trying to get her to call in, but because of the time difference,
scheduling conflicts on
because
both
of
sides.
Obviously her day job and everything, working in the largest media market in the world, covering sports for one of the biggest networks there,
and the Knicks' former head coach being fired.
She's been busy, and so we were supposed to pre-record tonight's episode, but it didn't happen. It didn't work out for various reasons. It was all bad karma when we first got in the studio. The keyboard didn't work, and then the phone wasn't working, and then we got the phone to work, but the record option wasn't working. So
they could hear us, we could hear them, then they couldn't hear us.
Basically, the universe was not having it happen. But
it was like when Joey Badass dropped his album the same week Kendrick dropped his album, and everybody was like, "Oh no, bruh."
But it's all good because no one can ever take away the great conversation that we had with Taylor. So special thanks to her for giving us some insights, just as upcoming journalists, just getting some of her insights and having a few laughs. So KB, what's the dopest thing you took away from yesterday's interview with Taylor?
Well, two things. It's kind of like twofold. Just the whole new culture for the Giants. I think she said if she could pick one person to have on her podcast, it'd be Josh Rosen. I think that'd be a really interesting conversation.
She said out of the QBs that people are mocking too.
Yeah, in this draft.
But she said she would rather have Lamar or Baker Mayfield. But between Rosen, Darnold, and Allen, she would rather have Rosen.
Yeah, it'd be a really interesting conversation. And she kind of was down the middle on the whole turf war between Chicago pizza and New York pizza.
Basically saying it depends on your preference, what you want. But she did recommend us
Harold's chicken. Harold's, get the chicken with the mild sauce. It's happening. We're doing it. And if Harold's wants to sponsor us on the East Coast, we'll do it. Shout out to Harold's.
Yeah, so I think those were two great things that I talked about. Like you said, her insights just as far as her covering Eli Apple when she was at the Big Ten Network at Ohio State.
And in the pros.
And now in the pros, and just seeing how his personality's kind of transformed. You know, she said things are squashed, the beef is squashed now. But I joked and said, yeah, until someone gives up a touchdown or until they go 0-3. Because that's usually when we start seeing things
somebody
go
blows
astray.
the coverage.
Yeah.
They did get rid of Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. But anyway, also she did touch on just being a woman in journalism and what she's had to fight against. And I thought
everyone is always talking about how she looks, how she sounds, what she's wearing. But she really just wants to be known for her content.
The content and the quality of her work, which is really good. She talked about the Dwayne Wade interview.
And that's the whole reason why
the Beasley.
That's the whole reason why she started her podcast, was because she wanted it to just be voices. She wanted people to judge her off of her interviewing skills, her ability to get people to open up and conversate. And she also let us know that she's the only anchor that they let do commentary because she's that good at writing it as well as delivering it.
Yep.
Which, if you look at her Instagram, she has some really good takes, especially the one about Lamar Jackson, where she says, you know, if you think Lamar Jackson should change positions, it's you who should really change the position in your head, because he's not the problem. You are. Exactly.
And multiple articles have come out supporting that take from various outlets.
And yeah, we asked her about if the Giants should take a quarterback, and she says they won't because they need to, because they're set on getting a Hall of Fame talent, a gold jacket talent, a generational talent.
And the last time they had the second overall pick, they got LT, and Saquon Barkley's the closest thing to that.
So she was saying they're probably going to go all in on Saquon at number 2.
And they didn't, and
regardless of how much sense I think Josh Rosen makes. But I'll get to that later.
And also I brought up the issue, well, their offensive line is terrible. But just taking a guard of Quentin Nielsen's caliber, even though he's one of the highest rated offensive linemen in his draft, taking him at 2 is kind of a lot. So
she said
Saquon would be dynamic in that offense.
Yeah, with Odell, with Eli. And I joked and said,
Evan Ingram.
Unless Odell gets traded, and she says Odell's not getting traded.
No one's trading Odell. No one has enough pieces.
But the way she said it, unfortunately, you can't hear it. But it's all good.
Do you just want like a pep talk or clap from the audience right now?
Yeah, man, because here's the thing.
I felt the pity in that clap, and I didn't like it.
It really was. It was really a golf clap. Here's the thing, though.
It was
we had like a really, really awesome interview / conversation. Like we really covered the basis of the show as far as like we started about her career and tips about journalism and coming up and her struggles, and we moved into what she's doing now. Talked about football. And then we ended talking about food. So it was really like a good just embodiment of this whole entire audio brand and movement that is the Touchdowns and Tangents.
And her dog was barking at random times, and she was like, "This never happens." And I was like, It's kind of cool.
Maybe he was trying to tell us that we weren't recording.
He was like, "This ain't it, fam."
But yeah, man, after last night on the ride home, KB pretty much compared it to the whole Seahawks being at the 1 yard line, about to win the Super Bowl, and not handing it off to Marshawn Lynch.
I felt how Marshawn felt, and it didn't feel good. And then, like, it's when I got home and really thought about it, I felt like Richard Sherman as it was happening.
Wow. Okay. Now he's blaming me to.
No. I'm not blaming
Darren
you.
Bevel.
Nah. No, it's Luke Wilson. He did an interview with Barstool a while ago, and he said, "Dude, coaches and players were confronting each other. It almost got violent." But no, it wasn't. It wasn't violent. It was more like we were both just like Rick and Morty crying in the car that one episode. We're like, "Oh, we can't do this. This is like we almost died. This is ridiculous."
I think this is the biggest thing, and this is the point you made off air last night, is that our show is really like an embodiment of our life, right? So it's like you and I have kind of been at this point where like we're on the verge of breaking through, and we always think we're going to break through. Like me specifically, like I've been at the same point in my life where like I'm ready to like blow up and everything just finally align, like mentally, emotionally, like financially, and I just haven't hit it yet. I mean, I'm positive about that, but it just hasn't happened. And so that's kind of like what yesterday was, where we had this great guest, we had a great interview, everything came together, but it ultimately didn't come together at all.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting some good news because I had an interview early in that day, and it was just a roller coaster. Like, I was emotionally exhausted by the time I got home. I was like, what just happened today?
Yeah, man, especially because...
How do I contextualize... Like Wednesday, like, my day off. That was crazy.
It's the sort of thing where we were kind of counting down to it for weeks, and then counting down to it all day long, waiting for it to come. And then when it finally did, it went over pretty smoothly, but not really at all. So it's like I like to say, sometimes when you're winning, you're really losing.
I'm mad because you stopped saying that for a while, and then you kind of just jinxed it. But I mean, as like one of our old episodes says, the conglomerate is manifesting. Wow, I terribly botched that. The conglomerate is manifesting itself. There we go.
Besides that, bringing it back to football, you can have an open running lane and be running full speed, and all it takes is one little shoelace, and next thing you know, your 60-yard touchdown is blown.
Or you fumble the ball and like they get it back. You pull a Jerome Bettis.
It just pops out of your pass. It's like,
yeah, it just happens out of nowhere. Like when Jerome Bettis fumbled against the Colts, and he thought they weren't going to go to the Super Bowl, and it was his final year, and he was dead ass crying on the sideline. But they ended up winning, and he retired with the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man. So shout out to Taylor. Hopefully we can get her on here so you guys can hear her, because her voice is amazing. Her takes are amazing. She's eloquent with the way she speaks. Her takes are fire. So hopefully we can make that happen again. But I want to move on to Bob's interview. Laker beat reporter for Sports Out West, NFL, NBA writer for Clutch Points. Like I said, he went to the same journalism school as us, friends of friends, and we were really excited to have him on because when he drops a tweet, like I said on the off-air/on-air conversation, when he drops a tweet, it goes to Bleacher Report and it goes to Hoops Hype and a bunch of other places because he's that much of a big deal.
He's been really grinding for a long time. And it's like, it's crazy to see like the work he's put in and how it's kind of manifested. So it's really dope.
Yeah. So what's your biggest takeaway from yesterday's conversation with Bob?
That he low-key kind of agreed with me on the whole Melo thing. I'm kidding.
Nah, he basically said...
He was trying to be diplomatic, but I was like, fam.
He's like...
That parade in Cleveland...
He's like, it depends
or an Olympic medal.
It depends on what kind of person you are. Like,
yeah,
either you're a person who wants championships and team accolades and, like, viral success... Or you want individual success and tangible things. Like scoring titles.
Did you just throw in the variation of tangent and tangible? I see what you did. That was clever. But no, I would say when he talked about the shape of the Lakers, honestly, and realistically, if if the Clippers doing how they handled the whole Chris Paul, Blake Griffin situation, did the Clippers make the right move? And he was kind of like,